Hi, this is Elkin, and welcome back to my channel. Some interesting news from ABC News about the economy. I know people are saying, "Oh, the tariffs is going to make the economy go into a recession and stuff." ABC News, however, sees things a little differently, and this is ABC News. Um, this is by Max Zane. Sorry if I pronounce it wrong, but it says, "Quote: Trump's tariffs rolled market, but data shows a solid economy. Here's why. Apparently, economy strength owes in part to a lag in data, expert says." So, market turmoil and recession warnings have been fueling worries about the United States economy after the aftermath of President Donald Trump's tariff escalation. Even a key measure of the economy remained very strong. I mean, the reason why the economy is signaling that they're having problems is because the people on Wall Street having what they call TDS, and they're manipulating the stock market by trying to crash the market to screw Trump over, but it's not working. Yeah, I call it the GameStop effect. And you had a brokerage firm trying to buy enough stock in GameStop to bring the price down so they can make a huge profit. But then the problem was the people on the other side, the people who own shares in GameStop, kept buying to go up. So you had two different forces at play here. This is what's happening on Wall Street. They're trying to buy shares in these companies, but to bring it down. But in the meanwhile, you got people buying to bring the stock up. So you got people buying to bring the stock down, and you got people buying to bring the stock up. Like GameStop. And eventually the company that kept buying shares of the company and options and trying to bring the company down, they ended up going out of business. If you didn't see the movie, I don't remember what the title is, but Pete Davidson's in it. You should go watch it. It's very fascinating story. So, the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell this week addressed this disconnect between the robust data and the dampening outlook. Despite heightened uncertainty and downside risks, the U.S. economy is still in a solid position, Powell said. He said he's welcomed the cooling inflation and resilient hiring, but he's also voiced alarm about the potential efforts of Trump's tariffs. Life moves pretty fast, Powell added. Economists who spoke to ABC News said the apparent disarray between the economy's gloomy outlook and its clean bill of health stem largely from a quack in economic data. Measures of the economy, like inflation and hiring, are released a month after the data is gathered, and they often reflect slow-moving shifts in business or consumer behavior, the economist said. As a result, such measures can prove outdated, especially when the economy is in a flux. By contrast, the economist added, barometers of a market simulate like a stock performance, and consumer surveys offer an up-to-date snapshot on how participants are feeling and in turn where the economy may be heading. But forecasters diverge from these metrics are imperfect, and they add, leaving open the possibility that signals could be overstated or underplayed in the event of effect of tariffs. Due to the lack of economy data, the gap between solid reading and dire warnings may be smaller than it seems. Jesse Rothstein, a professor of public policy and economics at the University of California, Berkeley, told ABC News, ultimately, we have to wait and see. Trump's Liberation Day tariffs earlier this month set off one of the most volatile periods of the stock market in U.S. history. The uneasiness Role markets also manifested in shopper surveys, in which last week showed worse attitude about the economy than any other point during the Great Recession. Yes, but you're trying to fix an economy that's been going on for 4 years under the Biden administration. They were hiring on the federal side and not hiring on the public side. You know, and those numbers have been revised going down, not up. Consumer sentiment is a leading economic indicator. It's saying people are worried about now and they're going to stop buying. Frederick Frost, not related to somebody who invented the dental floss, right? An economist professor at the Buffalo State University told ABC News, plus Rosen state the stock market isn't merely a measure of sentiment. People are putting the money where their mouth is, he said. For now, the economy remains solid, shaped by several top measures. The unemployment rate stands at a historical low level. Job growth remains robust, even though it is slow from a previous high. Meanwhile, inflation cooled in March, putting price increase well below a peak attached in 2022, fresh data showed last week. Data remain unavailable for the levels of inflation hiring in April, meaning that readings so far predate Trump's tariff escalation. A report on gross domestic product to be released at the end of the month will offer the first gauge of economy growth at the outset of this year. The U.S. economy grew at an annualization of 2.4 over the final 3 months of 2024, which marks solid growth. That's because now they had tried to fix the economy when Trump won. The U.S. economy is quite resilient. Martes Ver Negro, don't know how to pronounce it, sorry, a professor at the economy at the Buckley. I'm doing a 1,000 today on these names, aren't I? Bucknell University told ABC News, inflation is low, the economy is still growing at a excuse me, at a related quick pace. Still, Frenigro says some of the purpose strength may be mirage because the data is representative. I would be cautious, Frenigro says, pointing to the possibility of tariff-induced recession. If you have to look at the objective data, it doesn't mean it won't happen. It's just that it hasn't happened yet. Recession fears are mounting on Wall Street. Goldman Sachs earlier this month raised the out of recession within the next year from 35 to 45. On Tuesday, J.P. Morgan hiked its odd a recession occurring in 2025 to 60%. Obviously, these folks in support of Trump. The warning of a downturn echoed forecasts made during the last years of Joe Biden's administration, but a recession never came to pass. In that case, sour consumer sentiment also served as a major source of fear. The outcome changed significantly since the Biden administration, however, some economist says. Biden policies helped bring about a economy recovery, which is hiring people in the federal level, but not hiring enough people in the private sector. Through the fallout, risk a severe bout of inflation, Negro said, while Trump's tariffs has struck uncertainty and hiked taxes for some corporations. No. Trump has created a storm, Vernigo said. It will likely have consequences. No, according to what I read about the tariffs, if you have a product and you do put a tariff on, it might be like $2 to $10 per item, depending on what it is. Could be a little more. the tariffs are not necessarily passed on to the consumer. It depends on what it is, what quantities it's made of, who makes it. I mean, if you're BMW and you're making cars in South Carolina, your product is not going to get tariff at all. So, I mean, just like if Ford makes vehicles here in the United States, they're not going to get tariff. You know, it depends on your product. You got Siemens; they make railroad cars for the U.S. market. They don't get tariffed. Now, if it was a CCP and they don't build a factory in the U.S., they get tariff, and they pass it on to the agency. But like I said, the tariff only is like if the product is not made in the U.S. or if they don't get special permission to avoid the tariffs, like Apple, if they don't have enough production in the U.S., they get an exemption. They don't pass no tariffs on to the consumer, for example. So I know a little bit. I did do economy. I failed English, but I do know a little bit of economy. But I can't give you professional opinions because I'm not licensed to do that. So I have to put that in the disclaimer. But the thing is, if you know how the market works, I don't know much about the market or options. I just try to stay out of that because options is risky. And you saw what happened with earlier, what I said about that brokerage firm trying to put GameStop out of business, only to turn around, they went out of business instead. They try to short the stocks. That's what options is, stuff like shorting and stuff. But people kept buying it up, and the more it kept going up, the more expensive for a company to get buying the stock at a lower at a lower price because they had to borrow and short the stock in order to make the money, and it didn't happen. So we have to see what happens. But remember, the tariffs is on products that's not made in the U.S. But if you had foreign companies that make products in the U.S. or American manufacturers that make products in the U.S., those tariffs are not going to affect you at all. Or like I said, like Apple, they have an exemption because they don't have a lot of production going on in the U.S. And even though that some of the products are made in California, the majority is still made in China, they got an exemption for that. So you can still buy your iPhone without a possible tariff, 90 days or less, whatever it was. So I know a little ranted a little longer and I'm a little tired. And I can't get my words straight, but the economists have been wrong before. After all, they say how great the Joe Biden economy was until we found out that the reason the economy was so great is because he was hiring people left and right on the federal side and not letting the market actually hire people on the private section. You need the private companies and public companies to make the economy go, hire more people. A lot of people are not going to be working in the federal government. A lot of times the people in Washington, D.C. is doing or the ones that are getting all the jobs in Washington, D.C. And you see now what happened. It flipped the script, and now they're getting rid of a lot of people. So the private sector should be able to pick up some of these folks. Not all, but some of them. Anyway, this is Al Kane saying so long for now. Don't forget to stop.